Tonight on The Cycle, the U.S. finds out whether it can stop a nuclear missile in midair. Women prove that they can thrive in the Army's infantry, and we tell the unbelievable true tale of the late Manuel Noriega. All that and more coming to you live right now. Manuel Noriega.
Welcome to another day at The Cycle. I'm Malia Jasmine.
And I'm Jacques Slade. We're here to bring you the news, not the noise. So let's break down the day's biggest headlines real quick, in case you missed it.
The Cleveland Police Department fired the officer who fatally shot Tamir Rice, the black 12-year-old boy who was playing with a toy gun.
But it has nothing to do with the shooting itself. It turns out the officer lied about his employment history when applying for the job in the first place. Specifically, he left out the fact that he was nearly fired by a different department because they believed he had the inability to show emotional function.
Next headline, once again, a nuclear-armed country run by a childlike leader blew up a ballistic missile over the ocean. But it's the opposite of what you think.
Yeah, you see, the U.S. was so spooked by the latest North Korea weapons tests, we tried one of our own. The Pentagon launched a missile from the middle of the Pacific Ocean and then launched another one from the coast of California to destroy the first one, and it worked.
Kim Jong-un was probably shocked, like, you're telling me a country would blow up a missile over the Pacific on purpose?
Finally, the congressional investigation into Russian meddling asked Michael Cohen, one of Donald Trump's personal lawyers, for information and testimony. But Cohen declined to participate, saying the request was poorly phrased, overly broad, and not capable of being answered. Boom. Syntax burn.
In related news, Michael Flynn changed his mind today and actually will provide some documents to the investigation.
Don't you mean the Flynn investigation?
You're so clever, Jacques.
I am.
And that is in case you missed it.
Now, let's count down those really important stories that got buried. It's below the fold.
Okay, number one, Ariana Grande will return to Manchester to host a benefit concert for the victims of the suicide bombing that happened at her show last week.
Coldplay, Katy Perry, Pharrell, Justin Bieber, and Miley Cyrus will join her. The concert will air live on the BBC in the UK and live stream to the rest of the world.
And while we're on the subject, can we stop calling it the Ariana Grande concert bombing? She was as much a bystander as anyone else at that arena that night. So why should she have to carry that burden of the bombing for the rest of her life? Maybe we should just call it the Manchester Arena bombing.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be better. Great point. Number two. A tennis player has been banned from the French Open for sexually harassing a TV reporter during a live interview after a match.
Maxime Hamou repeatedly attempted to kiss Eurosport reporter Mally Thomas while forcibly holding her close to him with his arm around her neck. Another infuriating thing about the clip, which we can't play because of copyright reasons, is that Thomas's male colleagues are seen laughing hysterically at the incident.
Yeah, for her part, Thomas said, "If I hadn't been on live air, I would have punched him."
I wish she had. Number three, the struggling government of Venezuela got a lifeline recently when Goldman Sachs bought up more than $800 million in the country's bonds.
A little context here. Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, is desperately clinging to power amid weeks of protest by people who blame him for the country's failing economy.
Venezuela is at a boiling point and it could be headed for outright civil war. The influx of money from Goldman gives Maduro some room to breathe, but opposition leaders are accusing him of mortgaging the country's future in order to save his own skin. But come on, whoever regretted making a deal with Goldman Sachs?
Like nobody. Like Goldman Sachs,
Ever.
They're good with everyone. All right, number four. A statue of a urinating dog appeared on Wall Street next to the statue of the fearless girl that appeared last year next to the charging bull statue. How many statues are they going to have here?
Well, the sculptor says that he did it to stand in solidarity with the artistic principles behind the original bull statue. The fearless girl, it turns out, was commissioned by State Street Global Advisors to advertise their own index tracking gender diversity in corporate America.
A dog taking a leak on big banks. I bet Bernie Sanders gives it 2 thumbs way up.
Okay, so the gay son of an Indian immigrant will likely become the next Prime Minister of Ireland later this week.
Yes, Leo Varadkar says he isn't defined by his ethnicity or sexuality, but it's interesting to think about. How far is the United States from having a gay or Asian president? Would it even happen, or could it happen in our lifetimes?
Well, Varadkar's platform offers something for everyone. For women, looser abortion laws; for the self-employed, tax reform; and for leprechauns, more rainbows.
Yeah, and that's below the fold. Now it's time for a story that for a lot of people was TLDR, or too long didn't read.
Today we focus on a story from the New York Times about the first group of women to complete infantry training for the U.S. military. The story follows 18 badass women as they go through the exact same training as their male counterparts. Everything from the weight of their rucksacks to the number of push-ups they do is identical to the men.
All this was set in motion a few years ago when the Obama administration realized that despite official bans on women serving in combat positions, women had proven they could handle themselves in a firefight. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have forced thousands of women in non-combat roles to start fighting when the moment called for it.
Ultimately, the administration lifted the ban and the first class of female infantry graduated earlier this month. At the ceremony, the company commander never acknowledged the women making history. To him and the Army at large, they had proven themselves to be soldiers, and that's all that mattered.
And that's important. And that's TLDR.
Okay, so last night you probably got a notification on your phone that Manuel Noriega, the one-time dictator of Panama, died. And maybe you didn't pay much attention because it was followed by a notification that you got a new match on Bumble.
All in my business. But Noriega's story is actually fascinating. It's a twisted tale of drugs, espionage, and even some murder mystery conspiracy theories. Throughout all of it, the U.S. was along for the ride, and that's why this matters.
Yeah, so Manuel Noriega was a Panamanian military man that the U.S. had been secretly using as a spy since the 1950s. And in 1971, the CIA officially started paying him a salary for this work. 10 years after that, the leader of Panama died in a plane crash. A plane crash, some theorize, was an assassination effort carried out by the CIA to put Noriega in power.
Now, why would people think that? Well, by the time Noriega completely seized control of Panama in 1983, he had made a career providing arms and money to fight and kill left-wing militants in countries like El Salvador and Nicaragua. This was all done in cooperation with the CIA, after all. It was the Cold War. We can't have those dirty anti-American communists so close to the U.S., particularly in a region so important for trade.
Yeah, but at the same time, all that was going on, Noriega was also making a career trafficking cocaine into the States and laundering money on behalf of Pablo Escobar's cartel. He amassed a personal fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And here's the twist. The CIA knew about all of that, but didn't care. That's right. Our government for years paid the salary of an international criminal funneling drugs across our border because he was helpful to our Cold War foreign policy. So much for the war on drugs.
Yeah, cue the Rick Ross, Noriega, the real Noriega. He owed me 100 favors.
Okay, but there is a twist to the twist.
Yes, unbeknownst to the CIA, Noriega was totally playing both sides. He leveraged his unique position to also sell secrets and weapons to our left-wing enemies, and over the course of the 80s, Noriega went pretty far off the deep end, as dictators are wont to do.
He bestowed on himself the nickname El Man.
He unleashed riot police called Dobermans on protesters.
He rigged a presidential election.
He had political opponents murdered.
He became pen pals with a 10-year-old American girl who wrote to him because she liked his hat.
He also amassed a collection of teddy bears dressed like paratroopers.
That's all 100% true. And if you don't believe the craziness, here's a video of another one of his trademarks, brandishing a machete while delivering a tirade.
Finally, in 1989, President George H.W. Bush said enough was enough and decided to depose El Man. We invaded, and Noriega holed himself up in the Vatican Embassy in Panama City, forcing the Navy SEALs to deploy something called Operation Nifty Package.
And if Operation Nifty Package sounds pretty stupid, it was. Our SEALs loaded their Humvees with enormous speakers and blasted rock music at the opera-loving Noriega until he surrendered. And reportedly, on that playlist was Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. That's right, Noriega may have been the victim of history's first Rickroll.
That would be pretty awesome if that's really the truth. Okay, over the course of the next decade, courts in Florida, France, and Panama convicted Noriega for his crimes. You may have last seen him in the headlines in 2014 when he sued the makers of the Call of Duty video game for using his pockmarked likeness for a character called Old Pineapple Face.
So next time American foreign policy is in the headlines, you really should think about our goals and agenda. Just remember, we backed a deadly drug trafficking, pineapple face dictator for decades.
And when we finally went in to fix the mess, it cost the lives of dozens of soldiers and hundreds of Panamanian civilians.
Manuel Noriega, you may be dead, but we are never going to give you up. And that's why this matters.
Yes. And finally today, spelling is hard. For the kids competing in the Scripps National Spelling Bee this week, it's even harder. They have to do everything off the top of their heads, but for those of us who don't want to, get beat up, we just type the words into Google.
Yeah, we've all been there when you spell something so wrong that Microsoft Word doesn't even offer suggestions. It just puts that shaming red line underneath your nonsense.
I've been there.
Google released this map showing the words that are most commonly added after the phrase, how do you spell ... in different states?
Most of these are pretty understandable. People in Maine need help spelling pneumonia. I get it. That's a tough one, and it's cold there. Texans get stumped by maintenance. Sure, that's kind of tricky. Yeah. In New Hampshire, they can't spell diarrhea. Not sure what. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
But then there's Rhode Island. Their top spelling search is liar. Guys, it's 4 letters long. And South Dakota needs help spelling college, which that's just too easy. And the people of Wisconsin don't know how to spell the word Wisconsin. Maybe they've been listening to too much T-Pain.
Oh, yeah. Put you in the mansion somewhere in Wisconsin. Yeah, I get it. I totally get that.
Doesn't even really rhyme. You should leave us a comment with that one word that always trips you up.
Yeah, but don't look it up. Just, trust your instincts and go for it.
And that's it for The Cycle today.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to like our page. We'll see you soon.
Especially all of you in mansions in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
They don't rhyme.
Follow us and Cycle Live on Twitter and Instagram.
And like, share, subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook, all that good stuff at The Cycle Live.